Alright guys, today we're going to show you how to replace a doorknob from your house. Let's say you just recently purchased a home and it's got your classic brass, gold doorknobs and you want to spice it up with some new brushed nickel or some silver doorknobs. One of the first things I want to mention are that doorknobs are adjustable. There are no real standard door spacings between the door jamb and the tongue part of your door. As you can see, I have a doorknob here from the local Habitat for Humanity restore. And this doorknob is adjustable. It can fit this size of a door, or you can scoot it out and it'll fit a longer door. We encourage you to take off your doorknob at home and bring it to the place that you're going to buy it. If you're going to buy it at Ace, Home Depot, Lowe's, make sure you have it in hand, because there are no factory set standard doorknob spacings. You're going to have to find out how big yours is and buy the exact same, or buy an adjustable doorknob. I would encourage you to buy one from the local hardware store, go out to your car and open it, and make sure they're the right size before you drive all the way home and find out, oh, this one's, ta-da, a ½ inch too short and it won't work. So, open it up, keep your receipt, and then once you find that it actually does fit, then go ahead and throw the receipt away. Before you get started, you want to make sure you have the appropriate screwdriver. Phillips or flathead. Give it a good tug. Make sure it's not too loose or not too big. Too small, you'll strip your screws out. Too big, you'll just be frustrated and you won't get anywhere. Also, look for a nice long, maybe 4 or 5 inch tongue on your screwdriver. When you go to get these screws out, you're going to want to be tempted to use a drill, but unless you have a long adapter, your drill's just going to sit here, scuff up your door, come unloose, the bits will fall out. So a nice long adapter or just a basic hand screwdriver. Typically you want to take out the tongue part first, that's holding this part to the door. These are usually pretty short. Sometimes if it's an older door, there'll be a lot longer drywall grabber screws. The more times you replace these, or the more times they've been kicked in, or if you have children, you're going to want to replace these with longer screws. Longer screws are a safer idea, but as you can see, these come with a factory shorter screw. And then just, maybe grab one side, just kind of go on whatever's comfortable and just zap away. It doesn't matter if it's locked or unlocked. It doesn't matter if you have the key or not. And then once you get that first one out, you're going to want to hold this side, because you're holding this side on with pressure, but this side is just going to fall off onto the ground. Ideally, you'd want to keep it in good shape so you can go donate it to your local thrift store, ideally to Habitat for Humanity, and help them end poverty housing. You'd want to put it all back together, and then if it doesn't fit like this, there's the half moon shape, and there's the half moon shape. It doesn't want to fit, so push the tongue in, and that opens that space and it'll slide right down. You've got the half moon shape in there with that tongue that has to go inside the lock part. So just kind of line it up visually there. And then you've got your doorknob. You can go put it in a box, a bag, save it for later. Or you've got a full length, you've got a full doorknob that someone else can easily use, and you can go donate it just like this. So just as some basic precautionary steps, just put that in right. Okay, it's going to shut. Excellent. Then you're okay to move on to step 2. Whichever one you want to make sure has the locking mechanism, put it in. Visualize. Okay, well, I want to be locked in here, so this side will go into here. When installing these lever knobs, you'd want this to be out of the doorknob's way. Just basic visualizations will save you a lot of time and frustration. Also, what you see here is that this hole has not been bored out long enough so that this doorknob actually won't fit without some either careful persuasion Usually they're fairly hollow and they'll go in snugly, or you'd have to get your local handyman or go down and get a door drill, make it just a little bit bigger. You know, flip it over so you can see it. Make sure you're lined up, because if it's a snug fit, you don't want to be jamming on it and then breaking all your door hardware. Key is, as long as this opens and closes freely, you're going to be okay. And then occasionally just make sure that these two holes are already lined up with the holes that already exist. Make sure those line up nicely. This part is going to go down into the locking mechanism. Don't get too frustrated with it. There we go. It'll just magically click. Put your first screw in. I recommend you starting it by your fingers. You first start off with your screwdriver. You're bound to strip your threads. You want to spin it at least 3 or 4 times before you pull out the screwdriver. This one feels really good and secure. Your holes are lined up. This side's flush. This side's nice and flush with the door. It looks good. This side's locking. This side's unlocking. You're ready to tighten it down. As long as this faceplate covers the existing hole and there's enough surface area to sandwich the doorknob on, you're going to be okay. And to make this easier, you can go ahead and shut it now. It should be plenty safe. Lift it up, lift it down, move it sideways. You know, get it to right where you want it, and then really crank it down. If it's too tight, then this won't spring back in and out. So that kind of doesn't want to release nice and smoothly, so we'll just open it back up a little bit. And there it is. Opens up nicely. And then you just get your 2 other screws, screw them into there. As long as this doesn't stick out too much, make sure it shuts nicely. Looks good. Locks nicely. Opens nicely. Alright, so what we just showed you was a pretty basic doorknob. If you can see, this doesn't have any screws. You know, either side. There are no screws on the sides. It's not very apparent on how to take that out. And so we're going to show you how to take this apart and, you know, follow the same exact steps that you've just seen on how to replace it, but we'll at least show you how to take it off the first place. The first step you want to do is look for any little holes. Sometimes it's a rectangle, sometimes it's a pinhole, sometimes it's on the top, sometimes it's on the bottom. Sometimes you have to twist the knob and then you line up and then you have to poke it. But this one's pretty basic. You just poke that in and off comes the knob. Ideally, you can either record this or label number 1. Get a flathead screwdriver and look for this little knob right here. This will be against the wall, and so you'll see a little knob and you'll just pop it out like that, and then you just kind of pull it, and then you kind of get a little crack, and then you just kind of work your way around it. Again, the other side, just push in the knob, push in the little safety bracket, pull it out. We've got knob 2. And then what that does is it exposes the 2 screws that hold the whole door together. Also, there's a little clip here that holds this fake kind of cover on. So sometimes you'll need to line that up and then push down, or you'll need to push this in with a screwdriver and pop it off like that. And then you've got to the guts, and then of course this will be attached to your door, so pretend like this is actually on a door. And again, just use a really long screwdriver attachment to your drill, or just a hand drill, a hand screwdriver. The biggest mistakes people will make are to use your drill and try to power through this job. Well, then you're stuck with a $30 doorknob that you've stripped all the screws and threaded them in all backwards and you've got to go re-buy a doorknob. So patience is key. So if you notice, I switched out my screwdriver. The finer head was slipping and you don't want to strip out your screw, so I went ahead and got a bigger Phillips screwdriver. This also has the option of a flathead, and that would make it, although flathead screwdrivers are the bane of my existence because they slip a lot, but this particular application, a flathead screwdriver probably would have worked better. But now you're ready to install your doorknob. You know, you could easily slide this back on. You'll see the hollowed out hole there. That's going to slide over this clip here. So, and then you've also have two little notches on this side that'll slide down this little track here. So essentially you see there's that's lined up. This thing's about to hit that. Push that in. You could use your finger if you've got long fingernails. Do one of those numbers. Push, click, you're ready to go. And so when you're putting it back together, we put the tongue in first, and the same rules apply. This one is a much different tongue. This center part that kind of looks like a bone springs open, and these two outside clips straddle this little hardware piece here. And so these are a little bit trickier to install because this will be in the door. Go ahead and push that down. You know, you got to kind of look on the other side of the door like how you're seeing it right now, and just, you know, line up those two perfectly. And then sometimes you just kind of, you know, jiggle. You see what I just did there? Just kind of jiggle it in, and then twist them before you install all the rest of the pieces. Make sure that you've got a firm connection and that both sides are moving properly. Then you just go on the other side and do everything in reverse order. You know, put that back on, put your two screws on, put your your face cover on. There's a little notch right there that goes onto this spring. So just go ahead and line it up with the spring. Push it nice and tight, that'll clip on. Again, line up the grooves with the track. That with that. Push this in. And the same rules apply of when you're tightening the screws, don't make them too tight or that won't freely spin. And when also a helpful tip, when purchasing a used doorknob, you always want to make sure that it still works. But a common mistake is you go ahead and lock it to make sure it works, but you grab this end and oh, it doesn't work. It's not locking. Go ahead and push it, grab it by the center, and then test it, and you can see that that works. A lot of people grab it here and oh, it's broken. Nope, just push it in, center, and then test it. Thanks for watching the video today. Feel free to subscribe to the Habitat San Juan channel to be notified of upcoming videos.